This is Women in Linux. Welcome to the Women in Linux podcast, exposing women to information and careers in technology.
This is the Women in Linux podcast with your hosts, Dee Parler and Tamika Reed. Today we have Bryan Liles, a Director of Cloud Engineering at Capital One. Hey, Bryan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Bryan, this is Tamika. A little background. We met at several different conferences and so forth. So I know a little bit about your background and various actual podcasts you've done and videos that you've done. But can you open up to our listeners and give us a little bit more about your background in terms of, how you got started in tech? And I guess you can fast forward because you can also get into like your roles that you had in tech as well too.
All right. So I've been doing what things you would consider technical for about 30 years now. Started out many years ago. My father bought me a computer from his job. He was in the military, and he gave me some books and said, "I think this is the future. You should learn this." And I did. And those books were C programming manuals. So my first computer language was C, not like BASIC or Pascal, which were popular at the time. And then after that, like every young computer person, I thought I was going to write games. And at the time, you wrote games in assembler. So I learned a couple variants of assembler, 6502, then 8080, 8088 assembler, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But moving on, I'm going through high school. When I was in high school is when Linux came out, and I really thought it was. I actually didn't think it was going to win. I thought FreeBSD was going to win because I thought FreeBSD had an easier to understand kernel and was organized a little bit better. But I worked on Linux because it worked on my computer. And back in those days, when you had to download those distributions, would be about 30 floppy disks. It would be an endeavor to get it on your machine, but I did. And I got on the internet with it, and by configuring my own slurp collect connections, if old school people would know what those are. Didn't have a browser. Use text browsers. I didn't get a browser until I was out of high school, and they were there. Mosaic was there. Netscape might have been around before I graduated high school, but I didn't see it until I was an adult and thought it was the neatest thing. And that's and I went to school for computer science. And my freshman year, I got a job at an internet service provider because I had always been online in some capacity, whether it was BBS. And then before I got out of high school, there was a local BBS that had an internet connection, and then there was a local internet provider here in Maryland, and I was able to get online. So I worked at this internet provider, and I knew some programming, and through all my Linux stuff, I knew something about Linux, so that was a good fit. And ever since then, so let's go 20 years now, I've seen how cloud has grown from small ISPs to big, at the time, web hosting providers, to the inventor of the term ASP, which became SaaS, to working at DigitalOcean and, as an infrastructure as a service, to now saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore, and now I work at a bank. So in that time, I've seen lots of things. I programmed in lots of languages, over 20. I've looked at networking. I've looked at security. I've looked at the front end and the back end of computing. So I've done a lot. And then also, as a little sidebar, I did a little bit of machine learning, and I got into math a lot a few years ago. So I did a little bit of that as well. So I've seen a lot of tech.
So with that, I know you mentioned your transition from DigitalOcean to Capital One. What has been your biggest knowledge gain? Because I know there's machine learning and AI and finance. So are you in that end of the stick, or is that a knowledge gain that you required there?
No, so technical knowledge gains. So moving from DigitalOcean to Capital One doesn't use DigitalOcean; they use AWS. So I've had huge knowledge gains and failures with AWS so far. I mean, just using it as a product, not just spinning up instances and doing load balancers, but actually taking the API and making AWS a part of our platform. So that's been a huge knowledge gain. But as far as the other thing, Capital One does do machine learning, and we have some AI stuff. We have this thing called Eno, which is this chatbot. We're doing things with Alexa right now, but I only support those people. My team actually just does cloud engineering stuff. So,
Okay.
but I'll tell you, one of the other things that I've had to deal with and learn is that when you're working in an organization that has, started off with, like, when I started DigitalOcean, we were 30 something, maybe. And then at Capital One, my local group is over 40, and our tech org is 10,000 people. I support 1,300 dev teams. So one of the things I've had to learn is really, that how to deal with that many people and how to deal with them successfully. You can't be a jerk, but you still want to get things done.
Right. On your, so being that this is a good lead into like leadership and mentoring. So being in leadership, how do you mentor your current staff? And also, how do you mentor, I guess, with 1,300 different dev teams? I'm sure there's some switch off there. You're being mentored as well from learning from them. I shouldn't say mentor, I guess a partnership there. What do you see with that? What have you gained with that? Like, I know that's a big challenge from 30 people to would you say 1,200 people in your group?
No, I'd say 1,300 dev
1,300.
teams and 10,000 people. It's more than that. It's a significant amount of people. So on the first thing about mentorship, so I am a director. I do run a team. I do have reports, and some of my reports are older than me, and some of my reports are my newest report just graduated from college not even last year, a few months ago. This is his first job, and so I take mentoring at all levels pretty seriously. For my newest hire, first thing I did is assessed, can this guy write software in a way that's productive? Not can I pass an interview writing software, but can he write software? So after I did that and figured out where he was, my goal with mentorship is I am showing you where you can be. I'm showing you where you can be and take into account where you are. I'm not going to make you write code better. But I will tell you, if you do X, Y, and Z, and I'll show you how to do it, and I'll sit down with you, I'll help you get there. Because the whole point of mentorship is not actually doing the work for them, it's showing them how to do the work. So I'm teaching him how to feel what code looks like. What does good code look like when you see it? When you see errors and things are hard, what do you do? It's up to him to learn programming languages and learn all the ins and outs of that. To me, it's up to me to teach him how to be a better developer. And then on the other side, how do I manage 1,300 teams, the interactions with 1,300 teams? Well, it's pretty simple. Little known secret, and this is something I've been talking about lately, is people are horrible. Even we try to be nice, we're horrible. By nature, we're horrible. We're warring people, we're racist people. We just do bad things all the time. And that's just how humans are. So if we know that people are horrible, we also know that they're going to do the easiest things. So people are also lazy. And my goal is to make sure that any service that we provide is that the simplest thing you can do is the right thing. A lot of teams fail whenever they create these products that do complex things, but then they transfer the complexity to their users. The goal here is not to do that. The goal is to say, all right, we're the experts, the subject matter people. What we're going to do is remove that complexity, and we're going to encapsulate that in our things, and then give them some services when the defaults are just going to work how they want them to work. And that's a challenge. There's this whole time effort thing, but that's always my goal.
Awesome.
Keep it simple.
Right. So inside making your transition and so forth, I'm sure you have had, or you may not have some recommendations on podcasts and YouTube clips and books, because what we try to do in each one of our podcasts, especially when we're talking about VP of engineering, director roles, and so forth. We also try to leave our listeners with some books or some recommendations of things that you may have used, or techniques or books and stuff that you have read. Do you have any recommendations?
Oh wow, book recommendations. I will tell you this. I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of names or any names. I consume maybe 60 to 70 books a year at the minimum. Right now, I'm almost on 3 books a week with Audible. So, what am I reading and listening to? There's 3 things that I listen to. I listen to kind of the self-help businessy type books. And not for myself, really. I'm just curious how others think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do a lot of tech books, and whether it's a new programming language I don't know, or it's math. And the third thing I do is I do science, because you got to have an interest outside of what you do, I think, to keep myself sane. So I do a lot of recently I've been into quantum mechanics and quantum biology. Not that I know anything about it, but I'm really into it. So,
what's driving you to that?
What's driving me to that? It's I'll tell you what drives me to that, and especially quantum mechanics, quantum biology, and astrophysics. What drives me to that is that looking up at the sky with the telescope, most powerful telescope we have, we probably can see 100 billion stars, and we know that just using all of the information provided to us is that there's billions and billions of galaxies. So if we think that we have billions of stars, billions of galaxies, we're up into the septillion, stupid large number of potential solar systems out there. And I'm looking outside of my house right now. My neighborhood has 1,500 houses in it. It's a big neighborhood, but I am in a small section of Maryland, a small state in the United States, and we're on the Earth, which is not even like the fourth, it's like the sixth largest planet. I don't know the math off the top of my head, but just thinking about how small we are, and I like to understand that we're so insignificant, and I like to see what is significant. That's actually why I do all these things with the hard math and the hard science, because it makes me feel that even though I'm making all these successes, that I still am so insignificant in the world and in the universe. So I might as well just make the best of what I have and not try to impress anybody.
You're basically a particle, is what you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm tiny. Like, we're all tiny.
Right. But it seems like that helps you. It keeps you grounded in your day, because you did. When we did chat a little bit ago, you said, "I'm so busy," but it sounds like you're very grounded in that busy.
Oh yeah. I
Because you
keep
found
it
your
real.
purpose in that.
I know. So I'm all about purpose. I have lots of purpose in life. I'm a black male in a position of power. That purpose. I have daughters and a wife, and I have that purpose to make sure that they have everything they need in life, and life treats them good. I have purpose in my work, that people will work for me. There's purpose of that, and then there's purpose of the community, the people that I come in contact with, that I inspire. That's purpose. So all these things that I do is for them, and it sounds kind of cheesy, but that's what keeps me going. For myself, I can tell you, I'm not saying that I'm lucky that I didn't go to jail or anything like that, but I could have. The situation, the circumstances were there where I could have been locked up now or dead, and I'm not. So I am trying to take advantage of it, but I'm not trying to take advantage of it by trying to get everything I can. I think if I really tried, I could have way more money than I have, but I don't want that. I just want to make sure that everyone around me is happy and that I'm doing some good in the world.
Well, thank you for that. It's definitely what Women in Linux strives for as well. It's just like, what are you doing? It's about that reciprocity. What are you doing for the community? What are you doing for people that you can touch? Because sometimes when it comes to community or just doing something outside of yourself, people think they have to have millions and millions of dollars. But if you can connect with one person and share with them something that they didn't know and receive something back, that's purpose on a whole nother level. So appreciate that
But let me tell you
from
another
you.
thing, though. I have not taken any oaths of poverty. Don't get me wrong. I like
Oh,
nice things.
right.
I, I mean, we all like nice things, but I think at the end of the day, I have a house, nice car. I can go on vacations. I can buy anything I want. That's all I need. And I'm saving money for the future. I don't need anything else. Anything else over than this is waste. And if I did have more, I'd just give it all away because I have everything I need.
That's
Nothing
awesome.
wrong with that.
You're listening to Women in Linux. So, as far as technology is moving fast and DevOps and security, they're always like at the speed of lightning. What are 5 to 10 basic skills that you would recommend to any age group?
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. Let's go through them. All right. So with tech, DevOps, security, the first thing you need to understand, and this is what they don't teach you in school, is you always have a customer. So if you work at a consulting shop, you know who pays you. If you have a SaaS product, you know who pays you. You know who your customers are. But if you're working in a big company or working in a small company supporting other dev teams or teams or the business, guess who your customer is? It's them. So the first thing I want you to learn is customer service. And really, it's not the customer's always right. The customer has their own problems, and they're going to come at you in a way it's going to be basically the transference of the pressures that they're getting. So if their life is happy, they're going to be pretty good to you. But if their life is hectic, they're going to be crappy to you. So understand that. So that's like one of the big things about DevOps, empathy. You need to be empathetic, understand your customers. The second thing is, and this is for everyone, if you want to do something in tech these days, I don't care if you want to work on Linux, networking, security, and you want to work in the cloud, you need to know how to program. You need to know a language. And, I'll let people pick what that language is, but if we're talking to Linux people, you're going to need to know a language that is a systems language, and not like C. You might need to know C, but you're going to need to know Go, or you need to learn Rust, or you're going to need to know Python, and you're going to need to know them well. But not because you need to be a developer writing big apps. This is because this is the ecosystem you work in. You need to understand how it's built. And then next up is people need to know networking. If I say, hey, you know what? I have a cider block, and how big is it? It's a 24. You should be able to tell me instantly how big that is. Ladies, how big is that?
254. Sorry. 254
No,
hosts.
actually, you know what? It's 254 usable. It's actually 256. You
It's
got the
256,
network.
but you take off 2.
That's right. But see, the thing is, you do know that. Or if I said like an 18 or a 12 or an 8, a lot of people might not be able to calculate that like right then, but you need to understand why that's important. And there's other things in networking too. You need to understand the difference between IP, what IP and UDP are. You need to understand where TCP is. You need to understand all the levels of the OSI stack. You need to
Right.
understand that. If you're writing apps, you need to understand that. And if you're doing web stuff, you need to understand the web RFCs. You need to understand how the HTTP protocol works. So what I'm asking you is that if you want to focus on something, you need to not just know how to do it, but you need to fundamentally understand how it works. But understand that you're not going to get there on the first day. That's impossible. I've been doing this for, like I said, for 30 years. I just know how to learn now. I might not know everything, but I know how to go figure out how to do it. So that will be the fourth thing. The fourth thing is there's two things you need to know pretty much in any situation. You need to know how, and we know how to program. We know how to build big stacks with Linux. We know about distributed computing. We know how that works. But the one thing that people don't realize is that you need to know why. Why gives you that intuition, unless you know why you made that decision, why it's built like that. So after you figured out how to do something, go back and figure out why. So let me see. What's another one? Another basic skill, documentation. I'm not asking you to write Atlantic or the New Yorker style exposés on anything, but what you need to understand is that you need to be able to write. And I'm a terse writer, and I hate it. I think I just hate typing anything long, and I hate reading anything long. But you still need to understand how to write down your ideas, convey your ideas in words, and not PowerPoints. I know you go to big companies and they say, "We'll make a PowerPoint. PowerPoints are horrible. Can't diff them. It's not good." You need to be able to just explain your ideas in words, and not just Twitter words. I've noticed a lot of people do those little tweet streams or tweet threads. I hate that, and the reason why I hate it is because I just want to read something from top to bottom. Maybe because I'm lazy or whatnot, or maybe Twitter has figured out a way to keep me hooked. I just hate it. So that's 4. What's else is 5? So another thing you need to understand, basic skill, I think 1 was empathy. Actually, we're going to say 5 is empathy too. I want you to go back and look at 1 and realize that you're not doing it right, and really understand that your coworkers, the people you work with, your customers, they're just people. Yeah. And you need to understand them at a functional level, that people are people and people are going to do what people are going to do. So that's what I would stop. Now, if we were going to get more specific into programming or working with operating systems, there's other things I would tell you. Oh, actually, I got one more. This will be the last one. If you're working on computers today, there's 1 of 2 things you need to know. If you're working on Windows, know PowerShell. Just know it. It's not hard to learn. It's actually pretty intuitive once you get over the shock that it's Windows. The second thing is if you're on Linux or some other POSIX-like operating system, you need to learn Bash. And not just I can type command lines in my shell. You need to learn how to write stuff in Bash. You need to be able to iterate over stuff. You need to be able to use tools like JQ. If you never heard of JQ, go look it up. It's actually just JQ, JSON processing. And you need to be able to pull things out. And you need to be able to do conditional. And you need to be able to redirect standard in to standard error, or standard error to standard in. You need to understand how that works. And this all goes back to understanding the fundamentals of what you do. You can't just say, "Oh, I wrote this thing." You need to understand how it works. You don't need to have the computer science knowledge of every piece of it, but you still need to understand how it works and how it all fits together.
And you just kind of just confirmed what we preach all together every day is about the fundamentals and knowing the fundamentals. We've got that marketing of automation and you can just click a button, but you always are going to need the fundamentals, and they serve as the foundation for your tech career. And speaking of your tech career, from your background, we see that you are a CTO. How did you get that position, and how did you prepare for it?
All right. I got that position. I took it.
Say it one more time.
I took it. I was like, "Come here, you're mine." So what I did is, and this is one of my abilities, and I want anyone can do this. One of my abilities is I know how to make money, and just not even like go to job. I'm like, no. The hustle is actually strong inside of me, and I see an opportunity, and these are all legal opportunities, aren't like, I'm not on the street or anything, but I understand how to make money. So we ran into an opportunity a few years ago, and what I did is I wrote software for a pharmaceutical that did X, Y, and Z better than the software they paid hundreds of dollars, hundreds of thousands, or millions for. And there was some interest there. And through that knowledge and from me writing code and understanding not only how to put together this complex machine learning thing or this complex simulator thing, but also being able to talk to customers and be able to explain it. So when I say I took it, that's how I took it. There was no one else better to be in that role. I was the chief technical officer, not just the head of engineering or anything like that. No, I was where tech stopped. And I wasn't the end all be all. I employed the guy who was the best Vimmer in the world. And was I as good as Vim with him? No. I don't even understand it at the level he understands it. But I was able to put things together and put him in a good place where he could make lots of money and be mostly happy at what he did. So that's how I took that position. And how would I set other people up for it? Well, I'll tell you what, and this is where it gets kind of weird. If you look like me, the only way you're going to be a CTO, really, and this kind of sucks, but I'm even going to say this, is that you're probably going to start your own business because we're still in the world where black guys are we're looked at, most of us are pretty nice. We just want to do the same thing, wake up, eat, go to work, have some fun on the weekends, have more money to spend, then have more money at the end of the week. That's all we really want. But the world doesn't kind of see us like that. They see us as threats. So I will say that if you really want to be a CTO, really think about starting your own company. And you only have to do it once, because once you get some success, or even like mediocre success, you get sales up to, a couple $1 million and you have a few people, that's still super successful. And then you can parlay that success into other companies. But even in these other companies, they might not take it as anything. They'll still look at you. You're defined. I'm glad, I hate to say this, I'm glad my parents named me Bryan. Because at least at the beginning, at least whenever I go into a situation that people haven't seen me, I get the benefit of the doubt. And, I do like, I like names. I like creativity in names. I have actually not admonishing anyone who would do that. But think about that. It's just, think about not why you should not, but think about the world that actually has a problem with that. Like, with Tamika, when I think of a Tamika, only Tamikas I know what they look like. So what I had to do is you have to, since that situation might be there, you got to become a superstar in your own right. There is a legend of Bryan, which is crazy because I'm just a normal dude who has a sense of humor. And I try hard. I think that's actually it. I just try hard.
I've been fortunate with my name, so it's okay. I'm okay. I've been fortunate, even though it's Tamika. I've been fortunate. Oh, I get it. I totally get it. But I've been fortunate. I've been able to maneuver even with that name in different positions. Like like the company I work at now, I was the first black woman, the first black person to be hired. And usually I'm always the only black, but I'm okay with that because it's I don't care about what they have going on. I care about what can I learn, what can I get out of this position, and what can I make it in, what can I grow with it in this position? Like what would be the next level? Or if I've tapped it out, okay, then I moved on, but I move on with a level, with a sense of, hey, I taught myself this, I learned how business works from this and how you do contracts, and then I move on. But that's just me.
So to go back to your question, though, your original question, like how did I get there? This is the real answer. I tried hard and I got lucky. That's how I got there. And can I give you any book recommendations? No. Go find books that are pertinent to what you're looking for. Go to Amazon, go search for something, get the top books there, or go to Audible, or go to YouTube and look for popular videos. That's how I get my knowledge. And then I just try all the time. I mean, I write code most days of the week, even if I'm not at work. I enjoy making something out of nothing. I enjoy computers.
That's the most of the feedback that I've gotten from most people. There's been a few book recommendations, a few podcasts, but most of it's like there really isn't a guide or a book that tells you that, hey, I'm a CTO and this is what you should do. I haven't found that. It's kind of like almost like a trial and error type of situation. And then to starting your own business, and you're probably gonna fail at something, but it's a good fail because it's a learning experience.
So I fail all the time. Oh, constantly, every single day. There's always something that doesn't go right. I was working this weekend, and I don't normally advocate working on weekends, but I'm going on vacation the following week, and I got a set of meetings this week. So you know what? Being an adult says that I have stuff to get done, so I have to work on the weekend. Whole weekend of failures. This weekend, but you know what? I write down everything. So when I fail, I just write it down. And then hopefully in the next hours or days, I figure it out, and then I have a solution. So I guess one thing that I never do is give up. Never. Ask my wife. Never give up.
Then by writing it down, you have your documentation. Here was the problem. Here is the solution.
Yep.
This is how I troubleshoot it, and all the stuff in between.
So we saw you speak at DevOps. I think it was DevOps Days here recently, and then we also watched your Darker Side of Tech where you
Yeah.
keynoted. And so when it comes to speaking at conferences and someone asks you to speak, how do you pick your topics? What kind of message are you trying to deliver? Is it based upon the audience or the previous talks that some people have done at those conferences? What's usually your go-to when you're talking when you're speaking at a conference?
All right. So this is an interesting one. I have about at any given time, I probably have about 5 or 6 good rants in me, just the things that really just kind of piss me off about the world, and I keep those in my mind. My wife gets to hear about them all the time. She has no idea. Or like situations at work that I see things that we aren't doing well, or things that I see on social media, like things that I see the community not doing well. So I keep those in my head. But at the end of the year, in the fall, what I do, probably like October, November, is I think about if I was going to talk next year at a conference, what I want to talk about. And I write it down, about 5 or 6 things. And when it goes to preparing, I just write it down. If you've ever seen any of my slides, I don't believe in any of those fancy memes or any of that. It's just text and me talking. And the way that I look at it is when I'm speaking, I'm a speaker. I'm not just reading off of my slides. I don't use notes or anything. The reason I don't have to do that is because generally, if I'm going to go speak about something, I go research it like crazy. So back in May, I guess that was May. No, it was in June. In June, I spoke on open tracing at Velocity. But when I submitted that topic, I didn't even know anything about open tracing. I just said, all right, here's a challenge. I think that tracing is a great topic to talk about. I think more people need to know about it. So I'll research it. I'll research it like crazy, almost like kind of crazy manic about it. And then when I research it, then I just put together my talk. And what I'm doing to people is I'm having a conversation. Unfortunately, the conversation is pretty one-sided because I'm on stage and you're in the audience, and that'd be awkward. But when I'm talking, I'm just talking to you, and I'm giving the talk that I want to hear. And generally what that means is that it's pretty fast-paced. It's very light. And when I say light, it's light in spirit, maybe not light in content. I go pretty deep, but I can still have personality in my talk. I don't enjoy talks where someone gets up there, and I know they prepared so much, but they basically talk at me, and it's super boring. It's like going to church. Sorry. But I don't want that. I feel if people are going to take time off their lives and time away from work and time away from this and time away for that, it's my job to give them the best talk. So a good example would be the talk that I did the week before last at DevOps Days Minneapolis. I talked about DevOps in the enterprise. And when I do these talks, I really just have one thing that I want to talk about. And I use the rest of the time to either lead up to it, or I use the rest of the time to disseminate from. So this one was that people are horrible, and the only key is empathy. And so I had 100. No, that talk only had 80 slides. But what I would do is I would just go through it, and I would point out all these pictures and lull people into a sense of security where they thought they were, and then I would just turn around and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're wrong." And that's okay because I used to think that way too. But here's what I found out, and people like that. They like to be challenged, and if they're not challenged, this is my secret of how you give a pretty good talk. You start the talk with something light. So I've known speakers in the past that will start out their talks with a space, like a description of something they found interesting in space, or maybe they'll do like tell jokes, or maybe they'll do that. I go back and forth, but at DevOps Days Minneapolis, I told jokes, and not just jokes, some of the worst dad jokes that I heard online just the other day. And what happens is if you go out there and people are expecting a tech talk, and you tell them a joke, and then you tell them another corny joke, and then you tell them another corny joke, what you can then tell them is, all right, well, here's the bar. Everything I basically done the worst thing that I can do, but you've laughed. Everything else will be better than this. And now they're thinking, well, this guy is kind of corny. I'm going to listen, see if I can either hear another joke. And what I did is I kept a room of almost 900 people sitting up. Hardly anyone was using their laptops while I was talking. People closed them because they wanted to hear what I was going to say. And I think that's the most important thing, is that when you're talking to a group of people, it's your job to basically do two things: entertain them. I'm not saying tell jokes, but entertain them. Either pique their intellectual curiosity, or tell them jokes, or something where their eyes are on you. And the second thing is you teach them one thing. I know I've been to talks where they're teaching these huge, complex things. No one's going to remember that. That's silly.
Okay.
That's what blog posts are for. What you really want to do is just say, what's your lesson? What is that one thing that you want to teach them? And then that's what you keep on throughout the whole entire talk. So when people walk away, they don't remember, oh, that guy who came to Tech Talk. They remember that guy who talked about empathy, and people are horrible. That's the secret.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. I was listening to Vanderchuck, I forget his first name, but he was saying the one thing when you're talking about, just even in the startup world, is you want to gain your users or your customers' attention. Like that's the most valuable thing that you can have, is the person's attention, because if you have their attention, now you can do exactly what you want. So you have to do something to capture their attention. And I think that we got a panel coming up this Wednesday for speaking at conferences, putting together talks to get people motivated on, hey, submitting your talk, submit a tech talk, or do tutorials or something, like just, basically show up. And we want to help you do that. But having a person's attention is the most important thing.
Oh, I'll give you one more thing that speakers do, but I always tell no one to. If you do this, stop doing this if you're a speaker. If you are talking and either you mess up or you say the wrong thing, don't tell the audience. If you did mess up, just say again, just say what you meant to say. And if you lost your place, don't tell people you lost your place, because guess what? They don't know. It's up to you. You could just turn it around. You don't owe the audience any apologies for that. And they'll respect you for it if you just keep on going. But whenever people say, oh, no, I don't know. Oh, no, you know what? Your job is to know. That was the only thing you had to do, is be prepared today. And you didn't do that. I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And I think, another thing is that life in my eyes is brutally honest. There's black and there's white. That's literally all there is. There's no gray areas with life. Either you're on or you're off. And I'm a mess. I know you're over here laughing at me, but I'm a mess.
I'm not laughing at you. Because I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing, and I'm not laughing with you. But it's so true. Like, I'm laughing at the truth. Like, I love these podcasts because it gives us an opportunity to get to hear these truths into.
But here's the thing. I just got you. I just told you what you should not do. And then I said something. You should just kept on with it. You apologize.
She apologized.
See? I apologize.
She didn't pay attention.
I did, but it's still funny.
See, you didn't capture her attention. She didn't pay attention. You got to pay attention.
I know.
You got to pay attention.
You're listening to Women in Linux.
So I know we asked a couple of these questions before. These are kind of redundant, but in terms of how you research, I give some background on this question of why I'm asking it. Like you said you looked at something and you said you want to present it, and then you go research it, right? But I think to add to one of the 5 to 10 basic skills that you need, I think understanding how to research and how to debug is so important when it comes down to having your tech skills. I think it helps you tremendously, because you can get into something like you did with open tracing. You didn't know it, but you went and researched it. And I'm sure there were some failures in there, like understanding how it works, or reading a log file, or understanding like how everything is put together, and hitting up forums and asking questions. And, it's almost kind of like you're throwing yourself out there. I don't want to say naked, but it is. You're throwing yourself out there naked, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to accept whatever comes my way. And, as I get smarter, I'll cover up and I'll be presentable. That's my analogy for it. But that's just how I see when it comes to tech. So when you're doing your research, I know there is a switch that comes on. Like, what do you do to get yourself in that mode to research? Are you listening to music? Are you just picking books off the shelf and just feel like I'm going through the headlines and just read them? What's your method?
Oh, so my method is I do listen to music. I don't listen to. Some people say they listen to like trance music and electric music. I don't do that because I don't listen to that kind of music. I listen to, and this is where it gets funny, slow jams. I listen to, and a couple of genres from like the not quite modern neo soul, but a little bit further back. I listen to that, and because it's always soft and sensuous, and then even all the way back to the heyday of Motown, I listen to that. I like to hear some Patti LaBelle sing to me as I think about tech. Or more modern, I like to think about how Kareem Bailey Ray sings to me as I think about tech. And the reason I like it is because the tempo is slower, and they're not screaming and yelling unless it's a crooning song, but they're not screaming and yelling, and it gets me motivated. And then when I'm attacking code, though, I listen to rap.
Which genre?
It's all over the place. I'm an old man, so I don't like a lot of the new stuff. But stuff from the '90s, I listen to that. When I'm really in the code, I listen to some of the more newer, more ignorant stuff. But that's a little secret I don't like to tell too many people. But it just depends. So when I'm thinking, I listen to R&B. When I'm attacking a problem with anger, I listen to hip hop. And I'm not one of those people who'll be like, oh, I have diverse music taste. I don't. I really don't. I don't poo-poo anybody's music, but I just don't listen to it.
So you're part of the trap genre. You're down with T.I., is what you're saying?
Actually, you know what? I'm anti-T.I. I don't like T.I.
Okay. All right. So you're probably more Nas,
Yep.
Public Enemy,
Yep.
MC Light, Rakim.
Yep.
That's okay.
Uh-huh.
We're there. And I'm an R&B person too. Like I could drive like so I drive from Tampa to Atlanta, and for me, I'm gonna throw on Mesa or Layla Hathaway for 8 hours, and I'm okay with that. Like I listen to all the albums. I'm okay with that. It's not gonna put me to sleep. What puts me to sleep if I'm listening to trap music, or it makes me get a speeding ticket because listening to trap
turn
music.
that down. Yeah, turn that down when the police come.
Or when you're backing up.
I'm asleep. She's like, how are you supposed to be the navigator? And I'm like, you have just lulled me to sleep in the car like a 2-year-old. She does it on purpose so she can listen to that music the whole way there. And I love me some Mesa, but not on the road.
Well, we're coming up on our end. This is our shameless plug segment, and I want to know if there's anything you want to put in, somebody you want to shout out, kids, tech, friends, family. You have that floor.
Let me see. Anything I want to shout out? All right, I got a couple. Shout out to Barack Obama for showing us what a president could be and giving people who look like me aspirations of what they can do if they apply themselves and put themselves in the right situation. Actually, I want to give another shout out to, and I won't do this very often, but to some of the women that hang out in my circles on Twitter for responding to this whole Google situation. But then I want to give an unshout out to the same women for understanding that, for not understanding that, hey, if you always got to think about the person behind you. Yeah, life sucks for you, but there's always someone who has it worse, and you got to see a little bit of tiny taste of that. So turn around and look at other people and pull them up. Don't tell other people to stretch. You need to turn around and pull them. Let's see, who else can I shout out? Shout out to you two for staying on me and keeping this going. I know y'all have a little movement here, and I know it's difficult. And I know I am difficult. I'm almost like a diva. Like I have a person. You're not. You're lucky I gave you that email address. I actually do have a person that keeps me in order. And but shout out to you too. And for everyone else, I just want y'all to think that I'm just a normal dude. I just try harder. And I'm not saying that you can't try harder, but that's all I ever do. And that's my advice to everyone is that however hard you think you're working right now, stop and look at it and realize, are you working hard or are you working smart?
Right.
And most likely you're not working as smart as you can. So that's where you need to put your effort. And if you do, I'm not saying everything's going to turn out for you because guess what? Life sucks. But I can guarantee you at least that at least in the micro, maybe not in the macro, that things can be better and that you own your own destiny and all that jazz.
Well, we thank you for coming out. Thank you for the shout out. We shout you out back too. We're always in support of everybody that's moving and trying to do their thing and try to be supportive and connect people and mentor them as much as we can. If I don't have someone, if I can't mentor you, at least I can point you in the right direction. So, I'm always moving and grooving. You see me at the conferences, moving around. So, because of you and Kelsey and a few other people, and it's not a lot, I've been able to pick up my talking skills at conferences, but these podcasts also help too, as well. So
I want to say something about you moving around. You don't move around, you creep around. And y'all don't know this. We were in San Francisco back in February, and you crept up on me, and it took me about 2 seconds to realize who you were because, first of all, I don't really get down in San Francisco like that, and I choose not to know people there. In like downtown San Francisco, like out in Oakland, that's different. But in San Francisco, I choose not to know people there. So when someone's calling my name, I mean, you're either the police or I owe you money, and I didn't think I had any of those problems. So I looked at you probably a little crazy.
It was okay. I knew who you were. It didn't matter. I was like, I'm gonna walk up on him again anyway. Like I do people like that. Oh, so you don't know me? Okay, here I come.
She told me that story. She was like, he was looking at me like, who are you?
It took a couple seconds, but I figured it out.
I do. I creep around. I strategically place myself. I do. It's okay though. It works. Well, Bryan, we're gonna let you go. We know you got people to manage and mentor and put out fires. Thank you for taking your time today.
Thank you. Great information. Thank you for sharing. It was totally awesome to finally sit you down and have you.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for tuning in to the Women in Linux podcast. Women in Linux is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization created to get women involved in the field of IT using Linux as a foundation. You can connect with Women in Linux through social media at Women in Linux on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To join weekly meetups, go to meetups.com/Women in Linux. For more information and to connect with Women in Linux, go to www.womeninlinux.com.